Thank you for tuning into this episode of the 7 Mile Chronicles podcast with your host, Kyle DeMello. On this episode, I sit down and have a nice conversation with my father as we drink coffee, talking about memories from years past. I've been very fortunate to share some awesome memories with my father over the years. I hope that I can share the same kind of enjoyment with my son as I do with my father, and I'm very excited about this conversation. So without further ado, let's dive in. Good morning, Dad.
Morning.
I want you to take some time and talk about your life growing up here on the 7 Mile Stream.
Growing up here on the 7 Mile Stream, many stories of the hunting and fishing and stuff like that from my younger years was always adventurous. Of course, back years ago, when I was growing up, my father and his brothers, my uncles, they would, hunt and fish also. And if you lived around in Maine in the rural areas and had a big family, which most families back then did, it was a necessity to have food on the table. Every household had a gun or two, and they would go out and hunt for deer, and they would hunt rabbits sometimes, but anything to bring food to the table using their knowledge of hunting, which was not necessarily agreeable with the hunting of today.
Did they ever take you hunting with you?
Yes,
With them?
they would take me hunting as a young child, but I was never allowed to carry a gun because I wasn't old enough. So they would be out in the woods and they'd tell me where to go walking through the woods to kind of, move deer along. And a couple of times I heard some gunshots, which I thought were fairly close. And later on, I would say, you know what? Maybe hunting ain't for me.
You went many years without hunting. You went fishing. Of course, you took us fishing when we were kids, and we emptied your tackle box a few times. I came along and showed interest in hunting. And can you recall the exact moment or the day that sparked my interest in hunting? Do you remember it all?
My brother Tony was a big hunter, and you would see him out hunting along with some of the other uncles in the family. They would be telling their stories, the hunting stories, and everything like that. And then that's when you got interested into it, and you came to me one day, and you were probably 12 or so.
Younger than that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you showed an interest, and you wanted to do deer hunting.
Yeah. My first year hunting, I was 10. And then a couple years prior to that was when Uncle Tony shot that deer in the field when we spotted it from the house. And he had just had surgery. And so, of course, there was some snow in the field. I think it was late November. Uh, and we weren't sure if he had already tagged out or not. So you had called him up, and he said that he hadn't tagged out yet, and he had a doe tag, and I think he put like a 250-yard shot on a doe and dropped it right in his tracks in the field. And I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. And here it is. I don't know, 20 years later, and I think my farthest shot's been 55 yards.
Yeah, that was interesting because as the layout is where our house was opposed to where the field is, you could see, we saw the whole thing. We saw my brother Tony crouched down along the bank, and we were seeing the deer in the field from our living room windows. So we were saying, oh boy, he's going to shoot that deer. And we actually saw
The whole
the
thing.
whole thing.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah, I mean that I think that got me hooked. Plus, I mean, it's not just like we've talked about before. It's not just killing of the deer. A lot has to do with meat. So we'll talk about like early years of me and you together in the woods. I kind of laugh. I think about some of the things that we've experienced. We saw a lot of deer. That was early 2000s.
Yeah, well, the early parts of going out with you, because I was green at hunting because of the fact that I had given it up, back when they were shooting shots over my head. So back then, well, when I was teaching you how to hunt, we would take steps, and I would literally,
It was awful.
yeah, and I would literally tell you, take 2 steps. We stop, listen, yeah, listen. Do you hear something?
No, we never did.
So we took 2 steps, and then we do the same thing again. Listen, listen. And we probably only covered 50 yards from behind the house.
Yeah. For 10 years old, we did a lot of listening. It's the only time I ever listened, I think. One thing I have a lot of patience with is hunting deer. And I can stand in one spot for 4 hours because I thought I heard something. And I think that's from early years of hunting with you, of just, I think I heard something, So we're
Right.
just standing around.
Right. And I'm the opposite of you. I know you got more patience than I do as far as hunting goes, because I can sit in a tree stand for about half an hour and I get antsy. And if nothing is coming or I don't hear anything, I'm probably bailing out of the tree stand and, back on the ground with, just starting to walk through the woods and stuff. Yeah, we had a lot of good times as far as the early years.
You want to talk about early years? I hadn't shot my first deer yet. Uncle Tony had his family was out, Mark Drabeck and the other guys. And we used to hunt a lot up on the Spiller farm. And I'll never forget that time where all of us were up there. Everyone was kind of hoping that I'd get a deer. They wanted me to get my first deer. And they did that little push from, Uncle Tony did that push around that softwood patch. And we had them 3 doe come running out at us. And I had the rifle. He tells me to take the safety off. I don't even know what I'm taking the safety off for because I hadn't seen nothing yet. And those 3 deer come around that corner and about run us over. I think I should poop my pants a little bit.
Yeah, I thought I smelled something.
No, so we used to do a lot of hunting with Uncle Tony, of course, and the other guys, and all local around, where I grew up. And
Yeah, you got to understand that all the hunting we did was literally mostly behind my house, right here along the 7 Mile.
yeah,
And I don't stray from that.
no, you don't.
I don't.
Go to camp once.
Yeah, I don't. I like just hunting on my own land, or we've had good results.
Yeah, we have. I got my first deer 2003. Of course, it's a day you don't forget. Really, I mean, I was excited. I think when we were both very excited, but neither one of us knew what to do after I shot the deer.
That particular day, I remember I had worked days at my job, and I had got out. So it was around 3:30 or so. So it was the early part of the year, hunting season, and so we went out in the woods, and I told my wife we'll be back in about half an hour because of daylight. And I says we'll go out to eat.
You guys are celebrating your anniversary.
Yeah, we were celebrating our anniversary. And so anyways, we head out to this one spot, this tree stand, not too far from the house. And Kyle goes up in there, and he sits there. And I'm leaning up the tree that he's sitting in. And on to my right, I look, and I see this buck come out of the woods. And I can't believe it. And it's literally probably 15 yards away from me, and it does not notice me whatsoever. And I look up towards my son in the tree stand, and I said, he's shaking like a leaf. And I'm thinking, keep the gun pointed away from me.
Yeah. Oh, you were straight down.
Yeah, I was straight down, but being excited as you was, I didn't know where that was going to go. So anyways, the deer, just literally, it couldn't have been any better. It literally just kind of walked out in front of him.
I think it recognized that there was something there at the base of the tree because it was staring at you. It was trying to get around, trying to catch a wind. We had good wind that day, anyways. But yeah, broadside, and I spined it. Yeah, dropped it and missed the second shot, and so I ended up having to actually get down out of the tree and finishing it off. But after I took the finishing shot, you ended up telling me that it was a good thing you killed it because we didn't have any more bullets.
Yeah, that's right. And also the other thing is I had never cleaned out a deer before.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
never gutted one out.
Yeah, and neither had I.
So anyways, we make the trek back to my brother Tony's house, and we tell him we shot the deer. And so he was more than
Yeah, he
willing.
was excited.
He was excited, and he was more than willing to come out and help us, gut it out and stuff like that and haul it out. So by the time we got it out of the woods, there was a full moon shining, and everybody was pretty happy.
Yeah, I remember Uncle Reggie come over.
That was a 6-point buck.
Yeah, I was 6 point. I got that one on the wall at the house. Yeah, Uncle Reggie was at the house. Uncle Doug. It's just one of those things when, as I've stated, when I wanted to start this, like getting youth involved. Like, yeah, I shot my first deer, and I didn't think it was like it was a big deal for me, but then I didn't realize like my uncles were gonna be just as excited as I was, and then I think that's part of why I love doing it. I get excited for myself, but I also get really excited for the people around me.
Right.
So that following that year was the year we took hunter safety course following that year, and you decided that you were going to take the course with me and get into hunting. What made you decide that?
Right. Well, I think that moment of you shooting the deer and seeing the whole thing happen, that kind of excited me. And so we took the hunter safety course together. And from that point in, I was all in, and I really enjoy, deer hunting. I'm not a bird hunter, and but deer hunting is my thing now, and that's what I like to do.
The deer hunting back here, there's been some really good years. I mean, more lately than a set of years past. So why don't we talk about maybe some of your favorite memories from earlier, not the past few years, but some of your memories from learning how to hunt.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I enjoy just getting out in the woods with you and enjoying nature. That's for sure. Even if it was a day where we didn't see anything, and things were pretty quiet, I still like the idea of just being out in the woods and along the 7 Mile. It always brings some nice days.
One of my favorite memories from early on probably would be the year I shot that small little buck on top of the bluff. One of my favorite spots. Last day of rifle season. One of my favorite spots to really be. I mean, it's just beautiful up top. 200-foot rock cliff back down overlooks the valley. In the 7 Mile. I think that's probably one of my favorite ones. It was the year after Tony had passed away, Uncle Tony. And that was probably one of his favorite spots. His ashes were dumped off the bluff that summer. So I think it was that deer meant a lot to me. Just that moment, and plus Cody and Bree were dating, and my brother and his wife now. They were there. They showed up. They helped drag the deer out. You were there. You helped drag the deer. It wasn't like it was a big deer, but so it was kind of nice to have my brother there, and he really wasn't into hunting at the time.
I think that's when he started taking an interest.
Yeah, I think that's when he started taking an interest, and man, he's on a run too. I think he's like 7 for 7 or 6 for 6 right now. I don't know, but it's probably one of my favorite ones. And then of course I remember one from early on, my first year hunting. Was actually with Uncle Tony. He took me out back. It was the first deer I ever saw in the woods, and here he is. He's taken an opportunity where he could go hunting, and he's taken me hunting instead. And I think I can remember sitting there leaning up against the rock, and he's whispering into my ear, telling me, "Okay, you're gonna take your safety off," and so I take my safety off, and we don't know what it is yet. Of course, we can hear it coming, and it ends up being a small doe, and he tells me, "Okay, put your safety back on." So the safety goes back on, and he's whispering like, there might be a buck behind it. He's kind of walking me through this whole thing, and at 10 years old, you don't know if you're actually okay. Am I gonna remember this? Yeah, you remember every minute of it. You don't forget. Um, do you have a like a favorite thing that has happened at all, or
One of the nicest parts that I remember is getting deer up to the beyond the bluff and coming back with the deer in a canoe or a kayak and coming back the 7 Mile. That's a great thing. It's a good feeling that you've harvested the deer and then bring them back by canoe or kayak down to our house.
we've shot quite a few deer out back. I think you've shot like 5 or 6 deer now, and I've lost track of the amount of deer I've shot. A lot of them were shot, closer to the bluff. Early on in the early years, they were shot above the bluff. They were shot, underneath the bluff. It wasn't till recent we've made a few changes. You stuck a camera. That one year you stuck a camera on this little goat path. Maybe it wasn't even a goat path. It was just a spot where it looked like a deer had come through, and you stuck a game camera there, and all of a sudden, boom, there's this monster buck out of nowhere just standing in front of the camera like 2 days later. It's just like, whoa, okay. That's something we didn't know.
It almost seems like cameras attract deers. I don't know, because we don't really see any signs on some of these trails that we have. But if you just take a hunch and set up a camera, and then all of a sudden they appear and they're there.
Now that we're on the topic of game cameras, what's your opinion on them? And do you believe they're a guarantee to get you a deer or anything like that?
Well, they are a game changer. Thinking about years ago when there was no game cameras, hunting and stuff like that, you were just more accustomed to looking for signs. Today, you look for a sign, you set up a game camera, and you try to find the deer or the amount of deers that are in the area, bucks or does or whatever.
On the flip side of things, you can have a camera in a spot, and the deer can walk right behind the camera, and you not get anything. No pictures at all. I mean, it's so hard to go off just a camera. And I want to talk about 2 years ago. We had, how many pictures of bucks did we had on camera that year? I think one, and that was June. I think it was June, early June. We had a picture of a buck on camera in velvet, and then we didn't get another picture of a buck on camera until 10 days before the season opened.
We're talking about downtown.
Yeah, the 11 pointer. Yeah.
Point deer that we call downtown. I set up a little spot just, I'm going to say 100 yards from my house, if not closer. And I put a little bit of doe drip there and the camera, set up the camera there. And then, like Kyle said, 10 days before hunting season, we had never seen this deer all year long, but 10 days before hunting season, bang, this 11-point buck shows up. And when we were trying to make sure that we kept him in this area, because we were seeing a lot of doe that year too.
We had a lot of doe. I mean, and I think that's pretty common around here. We have a lot of doe. And then he disappeared for what, 5 days? 5 days later, he showed back up right behind the house.
Yeah, we had a handful of cameras out in the area, and 5 days we didn't see him, and we thought he's gone. He left.
Yeah, I think we both thought he just cruised through. And there ain't a chance that we're gonna see him again. And then he showed back up right behind the house.
Right.
5 days after that was the second day of deer season. He came into a rattle down along the 7 Mile, and the rest is history. He's on the wall. That was a nice one. 202. where all that went down, I mean, that was an awesome spot. I mean, we both said, man, Uncle Tony would have loved this. Um, it was just pretty cool. It was an awesome memory to have. Kind of relating back to that, the game camera part of that. You know, a couple years ago, 4 or 5 years ago now, I started a small food plot. And the growing, learning how to grow things has not been the greatest. But I've had a camera in there, sticking cameras in the food plot, and you get a lot of dough. You know. And the bucks could, you know, be cruising down below the camera. I mean, the game camera sits in the middle because it's, you know, I don't have enough. The game camera's not going to pick up the whole food plot. So, of course, it's sitting in the middle. It's picking up the top half.
It's a learning period. Oh, it was all wooded area. Just woods there. There was no original feel there or anything.
Big pines.
A bunch of cutting, and we cleaned up some stuff there, and you harrowed it.
Yeah, I've done some groundwork to get things moving. Of course, we got plans to make it better, but so I mean, there's an attractant, you know, to bring the dough in, and I think the bucks cruise either downwind of it or they're not coming through the food plot or this and that. You know, that was a couple years ago, and then I think it's your first deer you shot on your own property. You're 160 pound, 6.
That was headed out in the woods that morning with you. You took the low road, I took the high road, and I was no more than a couple hundred yards from the house that morning when we headed out. When I come down this little slight grade on a wood road and heard something. Turned around, and broadside there was that 6-pointer, and it was looking at me, and I steadied the gun and shot, and it ran down towards you.
And I took a shot.
Down there, hit my garage.
From the hip. You know, I wasn't sure if he really hit it. I mean, I thought I heard it crash, but I wasn't 100% sure. But I knew my mother was still home that morning, and I knew if we could get out of there quick enough. Hunter's breakfast after killing the deer, which was pretty cool.
All happened within 40 minutes.
Oh, I don't know. Legal shooting time that morning was, I think it was like 6:45, and I think like you pulled the trigger at 7, something like that. Or I think we had like maybe 100-yard drag to the field.
Yeah, and then picked it up with the tractor, went down by the 7 Mile, and got it out.
That was like the first deer that was killed near the food plot. And we say, oh, that was the food plot that did it. No, absolutely not. I mean, that deer had a home range of like literally 3/4 of a mile. Its home range was small. I had seen it the day before down along the river.
Yeah.
And we can talk about this year's opening day and the success in the food plot and what's our future for the food plot.
That first day of hunting season, I headed out, and Kyle was going to head down to his favorite tree stand by the 7 Mile. I went to the food plot stand, and I got up there. I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking I'm good for at least a half an hour again because I can't stay in the tree stand very long. So lo and behold, I'm sitting there, and within 15 minutes, sure enough, here comes a 6-point buck. Broadside comes out in the food plot. I took a shot. I did the proverbial meep,
Meep.
and the deer just stopped, looked at me, and I took my shot. And then after that, he went into the woods, probably, I'm going to say, another 25 yards. So I called Kyle and told him, he says, "Is that you?" And I says, "Yes." He didn't want it to be me.
I didn't really want it to be him. And that's not because I didn't want him to get a deer. That's because I literally had just sat down. I had just got to my tree stand, settled in on opening day. We got about 2.5 inches of rain coming that night into Sunday. And it's like, this is a good opportunity to kill a deer. And it may not be good for another week. You know, boom, there's this shot. But I was excited for him. I got out of the stand after, I think I waited, an hour. Yes, I went up and met up with you in the food plot, and we determined the deer was a little higher in the food plot than what you had originally thought. Yeah. And the second we got up higher in the food plot, we recovered the deer really quick. Yeah. It was 25 yards outside of the food plot. 144 pounds.
Yep, 144. Yeah, then the rain came on Sunday. The second day of the hunting season was Monday.
The 7 mile was about 2 feet over the banks.
Yep, it was flooded.
I went down to my lucky tree stand, and the water was up to the first rung of the ladder. I couldn't even get up into it. I was kind of discouraged. I didn't want to march around through the woods. It was one of those things where it's still early in the season. I can back out of here and not ruin anything and let the water settle down and get moved back in. And that's what I did. I went home, and I probably wasn't going to hunt the rest of the day. I didn't plan on it. You had made the decision that Monday night was the night we were cutting your deer out. Right. So Cody had messaged me and was like, "Hey, I'm going to Dad's at 6."
Right.
I was like, "All right, I'll meet you there." And if 6 o'clock is end illegal, I decide, you know what? If I'm gonna go over there at 6, I might as well just go out back and sit back there. I said, "Nothing's gonna be along the 7 mile. They're all on higher ground."
Right.
I waited there for about 2.5 hours. It was absolutely. I mean, I think I saw every animal in the book but a deer for 2.5 hours with about 10 minutes left to go of legal shooting light. The deer that I shot came in out of the back of the food plot, 212-pound 7-pointer. He gave me a pretty decent shot, kind of quartered to, and he wouldn't turn completely sideways for me, and I took the shot.
Right.
I thought I missed. I wasn't really sure. I thought, I wasn't sure if I heard him crash, but he kind of paused, stopped behind some firs. And then he was standing there, and I was waiting and waiting and waiting. Then all of a sudden, he barreled across the last kind of shooting lane, the center road. And
I wasn't here at the time, so I showed up at home, and there was quite a commotion over here. My son Cody was cutting up my deer that was hanging in the garage, and Kyle was supposed to be doing that, but Kyle was celebrating because he was on the lawn showing off his deer to some friends and stuff, and very, very proud of him for getting that. That was awesome harvest.
But we had pictures of him, and we can kind of relate this back to what we were talking about with the cameras. It's very hard to take a picture and say, okay, that deer is 212 pounds. You know what I mean? I looked at that deer on camera. I don't know how many times I had him on camera the last, for the whole month of October. And I kept saying, gee, he's a nice deer. I'm not sure if I would take him because his rack wasn't nothing crazy. And I think I've turned over the years more towards, I want to shoot heavier deer. That's kind of where I'm at now. So I was like, I'm not sure if I would take that one. And then when I saw him in person, I'm like, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, it looked to be about 180-pound deer. On camera,
I guessed 175, and then when I shot him, and then Cody came and helped me retrieve him, it was his reaction that made me realize, okay, this is probably a little bit bigger than 170 pounds. I mean, I think both deer were standing 15 yards apart from each other.
Mine was like a 80-yard shot.
Mine was a little under that.
Same stand.
The same stand. We're both right out of the food plot. It paid off, and there's a lot more work I want to do on it. I'm excited to get my son going and Cody's kids in there, and I want them to be able to enjoy it. And how do you enjoy it is making it a little easier for them. And just one more thing I want to talk about, like cutting deer up.
In the beginning, we used to bring, of course, our deer to the butchers, and they would cut it up and whatnot. But my son Cody, he learned from this other guy that he was going out with this girl, and her father used to cut his own deer. So he kind of taught Cody how to cut his deer. And then Cody, when we got deers years after year, Cody would say, hey, let me come over. I want to cut it up. So then we started researching it more on YouTube and whatnot. And so we, all three of us, Cody, Kyle, and myself, we've refined our skills as far as cutting up a deer.
One thing I really enjoy about it is it's like a whole family thing. Everybody is really part of it, but we all have our own thing that we're really good at. Cody is really good at cutting the meat actually off the deer, getting it off. There's almost no waste. I mean, he's unbelievable at it. I would say skidding the deer, I can skin a deer pretty quick. And then like, for cleaning the meat, I mean, you couldn't ask for better meat cleaner, really. I mean, there's not a stitch of hair. I mean, he vacuums the floor 3 times a day, so the meat's gonna be clean.
That's me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, I got a little electric winch in the garage that we lift the deer up. That makes it real handy.
That was huge.
That was huge.
Yeah.
And of course, a good knife set. It's my wife, Yvonne, their mother.
Yeah.
She does all the packaging and labeling of the meat.
Yeah.
And so we have quite a little operation when we get inside.
Because and everybody likes different things. Cody likes the big hunks of steak meat. He likes it thick. I'm more on the thinner side for my steaks, and then you and Mom are more of like the cubes, small cubes, stir fry kind of things. It's neat, so you can pick and choose on what you do. We tried our own sausage 2 years in a row now. The first year was better than the second year,
It's a learning curve.
and I think it was what we used. So I enjoy that, and I think that's probably one of my favorite things, really, about the whole deer season is getting the deer, hang it in the garage, and then getting together. And while you're cutting the deer up, you get to talk about the deer, the stories and different things like that. I think we're gonna wrap it up.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks for taking the time out of your very busy schedule.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad you had asked me to do this. It kind of gives me my back a break from splitting wood. So, I really enjoyed this, talking about our adventures of hunting.
All right, thank you very much.
Do it.
Oh my God!
Who does that?
Dad.